You've been around a lot of different players, had a lot of different experiences. So, I mean, you talked about Hakeem Olajuwon, you talked about Paul George a little bit, Jimmy Butler, and, all these other guys. I mean, do you have, an opinion as to the best player you coached, the most talented player?
As an assistant on those championship teams, you're just, you're kind of just a humble servant. Your job is to support the players and the head coach and the franchise. And I'm just so grateful and thankful and appreciative and blessed to have that opportunity to be part of those teams. I was a little piece of those teams, but I did support my head coach and I supported the franchise and the players the best of my ability. And I was around Akeem, and to me, he's like the toughest guy I've ever seen. He just, and the athleticism at that size, guys, is just, it's
incredible.
It was incredible. Yeah. So he's that, right? And then, Tim Duncan, I was part of that staff in his later years, but, he was the kindest, most intelligent person and just a great player, and how he grew his game even as he aged, and how he helped them win every year, even though maybe he didn't have the same role. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that, to be a part of that. And that whole team, Ginobili, Parker, Diaw, great guys. Barkley was the most fun to be around. Sam Cassell was a really good player. Robert Horry was a good friend and a good player, a winning player, the best passer, post passer, out of bounds passer, in my opinion, in the history of the game. He could make the 4-to-5 big to big pass as good as anybody. And he was really, really smart, and a good person and a winning guy. What's he got? 7 rings, guys? Or
yeah, 7 rings.
7, come on, man. And
Insane.
I remember when we drafted him, we didn't take Harold Miner, and they booed us off the stage. We were doing it in the Compaq Center, and we were supposed to take Harold Miner. He was Baby Jordan, if you guys remember that. Again, you guys are a little younger, but we took Robert Horry and they booed Rudy off the stage. The fans.
Oh boy.
And then Robert, you never heard of Baby Jordan again. And Robert Horry had the most unbelievable career you could have. Anybody that wanted to win picked him up. The Spurs, the Lakers, right? Because he could play with a dominant center. And people don't talk about that enough. He had a knack to play with the dominant center. That's a skill at that time in the league. That was a big time skill. So you mentioned Kawhi and Paul George and those guys. So I think one thing that's interesting, I put Jimmy Butler in there too. So you got Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler. Okay. Jimmy Butler was drafted maybe the latest. What was he, 30?
I think it was 30, yeah.
30, okay. And those other 2 guys, I think, were in the lottery or close to the lottery, right? So, but all 3 of those guys, they didn't start when they first came in the league. They became defenders and rebounders and stoppers first. I wouldn't call them role players, but they came off the bench. And then they grew. They established themselves to be able to get on the floor by playing defense and playing the right way. And then offensively, they grew and they became who they are now, who young kids today think that's who they've been the whole time. Guys, they haven't.
Not the case.
So the lesson in that is whatever level you get in the league, and Rudy T used to say this, whatever a guy comes in at, he still has to get better to reach his potential and be the best version of himself. Even Tim Duncan, guys, as great as he was, he got better and to become the best version of himself. And that's what you're hoping for as a franchise and a coach. And Ja Morant, he comes in, he's dynamic and everything. He's getting better, guys. He's growing, he's figuring out. Maybe he got hurt a little bit, maybe sitting out and watching what's going on and seeing, it helped him, right? He got to see maybe some things and take a break for a minute and figure it out. So, you have to get better. You have to grow. And it comes down to your character and your work ethic. Paul George worked, man. He worked. Kawhi Leonard worked. He was coachable, teachable. He was respectful. Jimmy Butler was tough as nails, man. He still is,
Still is.
And he worked and he cared and he wasn't afraid to speak up to a teammate when that guy was out of line or didn't work hard enough. And when you got a player coach team, that's why I think Miami's got a great shot to win it all, because they got a player coach team. They got players that take ownership of how the team performs. We had that in San Antonio. Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Parker. They took ownership of how the team performed. And that's really important, guys.